A source says the U.S. was notified before Israel launched its retaliatory strike against Iran, but was not involved. And as we await an official White House response, 6 American naval ships are stationed in the Middle East, as well as thousands of U.S. troops. The Navy says it has spent nearly $1 billion fending off attacks by Iran and its proxies in the Middle East over the last 6 months. Jonathan Gilliam is a former Navy SEAL and FBI special agent, and he joins us now. Jonathan, good morning to you. You know, this Israeli strike, the goal of it was to de-escalate. But if that doesn't happen, is the United States prepared and ready for the possibility of a broader war?
Well, I don't think it's going to work in the long run. All these this back and forth is nothing but a Band-Aid and a temporary restraint. Iran wants war. I don't know when is everybody going to realize that Iran wants war with Israel? And whether it's a proxy war or whether it's Iran themselves attacking, which they've shown that they're at least willing to do now, they're going to continue to carry out attacks on Israel. With that being said, the Biden administration, as we've seen since he came into office, they are not war fighters, and they're not really that good at diplomats. So they're going to do whatever is politically best for the Biden administration. That's what they're going to do for themselves. And if that means not attacking or not carrying out any type of offensive action on Iran, if need be, that's what they'll do. That's what they did in Afghanistan. That's how they've dealt with China. And I believe that's how they'll deal with it now.
Yeah, you know, you are right. Iran does want war with Israel. They also want to wipe the United States off the face of the earth. They make that very clear with the death to Israel, death to America chants that we're now even seeing in our own country. But Jonathan, how does this end? I mean, Israel, they say it's a great country in a really bad neighborhood, and that's true. You have Hamas in the south, Hezbollah to the north, which is another major threat. What does Israel need to do ultimately to protect itself?
Well, it's interesting, Carly, because you said they have Hezbollah to the north and Hamas to the south. That's Iran. Hezbollah and Hamas are Iran, along with around 40 other proxies around that region, including the Houthis, who've just consistently been harassing shipping in the Red Sea. The interesting thing, Carly, is that as was displayed this past weekend, Iran themselves are not technically advanced enough to hit anything. They shot over 300 different types of munitions, and only about 5 of those even reached the ground. The rest of them were exploded somewhere over a place other than Israel. So why is this autonomy continuously given to Iran? Why does everyone act as though Iran is the superpower not to be messed with? I look at this the same way I look at Putin when he started going after Ukraine. The modern political warfare is the same as it used to be back in the revolutionary days when they used to line up and have gentleman warfare. Diplomatic warfare does not want to get involved in actual warfare. And before long, they're going to be drawn into it. And at that point, it's going to be defensive, as we see here, and not offensive. And people need to realize, along with diplomats and politicians, that war actually, if done correctly, will stop an enemy. And until that is recognized with Iran and they are stopped being treated like a superpower, they are going to continue to initiate attacks on Israel.
So how would you do that, Jonathan? How would you stop Iran in its tracks?
Well, if everybody that has a problem with Iran decided to come together in a coalition and take out the entire headshed of Iran and
like
all of their
Abraham Accords.
Infrastructure to wage war, they would be able to stop it. And that's the problem, that nobody comes together and deals with it.
Yeah, like the Abraham Accords that the former President Trump, was achieving during his administration. And to that point, the Wall Street Journal, Jonathan, is reporting that the White House is renewing their push for Israel to normalize relations with Saudi Arabia, but that would come at the price of granting the Palestinians statehood. What do you think about that? Do you think that that's a fair trade-off and would ultimately be in Israel's best interest?
I think ultimately Israel is going to have to deal with the Palestinian issue in a way that looks past Hamas and looks at giving the Palestinians a place to exist. That's going to have to be the case eventually one day. And if it means getting Saudi Arabia on their side, I would say that's something they need to start looking towards. Because ultimately, as we've seen in this, Saudi Arabia and many of the other countries allowed Israel to use their airspace, which means they understand the threat that Israel is. And even if Israel didn't exist, Iran would still be a problem and a thorn in the side of everyone in that region and in the side of the United States. And whether it's terrorism, whether it's proxy wars, or they are trying their hardest to take a war and themselves to Israel, Iran will consistently attack in one way or another to reach their objective. They want war.
Yeah, there are a lot of players here, all with opposing interests, which is why we are where we are today. Jonathan, thank you so much for parsing through it all for us this morning. We appreciate it, as always.
Thank you, Carly.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.